Hello, you're watching Grace Artistry. I'm Anna Grace, and today I'm going to be showing you how to do a gradation. I'm going to paint a sky. So I will be starting from dark to light because usually when you're looking at the sky, that's how it goes. It goes dark, and then the further down towards the horizon you look, it gets lighter and lighter. So this is a scene in Israel. It is the Mediterranean Sea. And I've got a restaurant in the corner over here, and then just an ocean scene. So the water over here, and then the sky. It's a pretty simple painting. It's a commission painting. And I'm just gonna get started, and you can join me for that. So I'll start by mixing my colors. Now, when I do a gradation, which is one of the hardest things to do in my opinion, it's hard to get a really nice, clear sky. Without like streaks in it and without clouds in it, and I'm not always great at it, so we'll see how it goes in this video. I have practiced a lot with different skies and things, but it's kind of a 50-50 thing. I might get streaks in it and I might do it perfectly. We'll see. Alright, so I'm going to mix 3 different colors. I want a dark color, a medium color, and a lighter color. And it doesn't have to be just like blue the whole time. I think I'm gonna try to get a little bit pinker as it gets down to the horizon line. When you're doing this, you want clean containers. And these are just yogurt containers. They work perfectly. Alright. So I usually just work with the primary colors. I've got my blue, my magenta, and my yellow. I just find it easier to mix with just 3 colors because then you don't have all of these like combinations and possibilities and you're not sure if this certain brand has a certain tint or whatever. It's just I've got my 3 colors. I know what's going to happen when I mix each of them. Find it easier. So I don't want any of them to just be pure color. I'm going to add white to all of them. So I did put my canvas flat on my surface, or mostly flat, instead of just straight up, because I don't want the paint to drip down. I'm going to be using a lot of water to make this sky, to be able to blend it and mix it nicely. So I do want it to be a fairly flat surface. I think that helps a little bit. Alright. So I'm not very fancy with my mixing. I beat up my paints a lot and just go right in there. I'm starting to run out of this color, so hopefully I have enough to finish this painting. And doing a background like this, a big sky, takes up the most amount of paint that I ever use in my paintings. I usually paint with a lot of thin layers, just on top of each other, layer upon layer upon layer. But for something like a sky with this gradation, I use slightly thicker paint and just try to cover it completely. Got chunks in there, that's all dried out. The last time I took my paints out, I was plein air painting, so I think that dried them out a little bit because I had the lids open for a lot of the time just because it was easier than constantly going in and opening the jars. So right now I just have blue, but I find that sky is usually, I don't know if this is true for everywhere, but usually a little bit purple in its tint. So I'm going to add a little bit of red. Red/magenta. And I can't really tell what this color is yet until I add white. I've got a lot of dried paint in there. Okay, there we go. Now let's see what we get. And I want to mix it completely. I don't want different tints in there. Just want it to be one solid color. So yes, I'm wrecking a brush as well. It was already frayed. I have done this with a palette knife before, but I find that I really get a lot of streaks in there when I use a palette knife for mixing. When I'm using a brush, I can really just mix it all in. Now this is not quite enough paint for the whole top of the canvas, so I'm going to add a bit more. And I can mix a lot of this color because I'm going to use a little bit of it for my medium color. I can use a lot of paint. So I'm not trying to stick to the photo super closely. My camera doesn't pick up color very well anyways. I'm just trying to think of a color that I think is quite nice and is pretty convincing for an ocean sky. And you can do this with any color. You could do it with pinks, or you could even do like greens or something. Now I don't want these to dry out while I'm mixing, so I'm just going to add some water. I love having a spray bottle right by me, especially with acrylics, because they do tend to dry very fast. I don't want these colors to be too different from each other, because I want to get that nice even gradation across the whole thing. So they're a very similar color, just a slightly different value. I'm really trying to make sure that I don't have just like big globs of color. Try to make it all even, which will really help with creating that nice smooth look when I paint the sky. Whew, there we go. I think that's good for my colors. Alright, I'm nervous. I haven't done this for so long. Alright, this is a process that has to be done really fast, and I have to keep everything wet so that it doesn't just dry up, because if it starts drying up, it's going to start pulling it, and it's not gonna blend nicely anymore. So I'm just going to slightly wet the canvas. Darkest paint at the top. So I can just load it up nice and thickly. You want to mix a little bit more than you're actually going to need, which I think I did. I'm not going to worry about the edges because I'm going to just paint black on there at the end. And I don't want those big globs anywhere. If it's too wet, the paint will start picking up off the canvas, like it's doing that over here. So I also don't want it to be too wet. It's kind of a balance. I don't want to accidentally tip my water over. Alright, move to the next color. Now I don't want to go back into that right now, and hopefully not for the whole time, because up here is exactly the color that I want it to be. Alright, so I've got that old color on my brush. I'm just going to wipe it off. Doesn't have to be perfect. see I've got streaks in there already. I don't really want that. Probably should have wiped that brush off a little better. Oh well, it's on now. Now I'm going to go through and mix this with my wet brush. So I'm trying to make those X's. I don't want all of my brush strokes to be in one direction. So I'm trying to create that even sky effect. So again, wipe off my brush. Now I don't want it to be too light. And I don't want it to be too wet either. Using that dry brush. I can see some streaks up here. A bit wet. Now usually I do have to do this a few times. I don't usually get it right on my first try. So I'll paint a whole sky, I'll let it dry completely, and then I'll go over it again. But I'm going to try this time. I try every time. Now I know I have some dots here that are wet spots, so I'm hoping that those dry clear, or that they just blend in at the end. We'll see. Okay, I'm going in with my that light color that I mixed last minute. Now I'm still trying to think of where my horizon line is, because I don't want to make the sky beautiful all the way down when I'm going to paint ocean over top of it. So I'm going to bring this up a little bit. Okay. Again, drying off that brush, making sure there's not too much of that last color on it. I could just get a whole bunch of brushes like this and use different ones the whole time. I probably should do that. Oh well. I have this old paint on there that I got over here that I didn't want. Make those X's. Just try to even it out. Now another thing is, I'm consciously making my hand go like this, because if I don't, it's gonna go like this. So I'm countering that by kind of doing it the opposite way, which hopefully helps me to be straight, if that makes any sense at all. Okay, we've got a really stark line there. Let's see if I can blend that in a bit. This is why you want it to stay wet. I'm not sure that these ones up here are going to dry. I hardly have any paint on my brush. It's just almost dry brushing it. I've got a little bit, but not a whole lot, see? Just a bit. Okay, I want that last color in there still. That purple color. Let's do this. Okay. I don't know if this is still wet enough. Again, I don't want it to get too wet. Okay, here we go. I'm not going to make those X's too big, or trying not to anyways. This is a smaller section of the sky. Okay, drying off my brush, trying to get most of that paint off. I'm painting from my shoulder. Well, you kind of have to do that for something this big, but you should always be drawing and painting from your shoulder instead of from your hand, because it's better for you and it gives you a better result. Okay, that's pretty streaky. I can see those sharp changes in the sky, so I'm going to try to go over it one more time, hoping I don't wreck it. Dry off my brush as much as I can. Clean it off a little bit too with some water. Alright, here we go. Trying to get rid of those stark changes where you can tell where I put the new color on. And see, it's starting to thin out a little bit, so I probably will have to do this sky again. Add some more, I just have a hair there, some more paint. Okay, I can see a really sharp line in there. It was probably a hair on my brush that was not with all the other ones. It's a rogue hair, and it made a hard streak in there. Oh, that's all right. I'm going to leave it. If I go over it again, it's probably going to just get even streakier. So I'll try to zoom in a little bit so you can see. It is really hard to zoom into a sky that you painted because the camera doesn't know what to focus on. And I'm finding it hard to know what to focus on as well. There you go. Okay, there are the streaks. Yeah, so I'll go over this again, and you definitely don't want to touch it at this point because, here, I'll show you. If I do, see that? Okay, I'm painting the ocean over that. You'll just pick the paint right up. And that's what happens when you brush over it. Let's use a dry brush. See, if I start to brush over it again, it's starting to pick up all that paint. So I don't want to do that. And look, I didn't go all the way down with the color. I'm going to do that now. Try to use up some of that color on my brush. So I'm going to go over the sky again once it's dry. I want it to be completely dry, or it's going to do that thing where it starts picking it up if it's not. Or it's just going to drag it and give it this weird texture. And I don't want texture in my sky. I want it to look a little bit more realistic. That'd be cool. Maybe that'll be for another painting. Textured sky. So I'll go into time lapse and you can watch me do the whole thing again, but quickly. My sky. It's got a pretty good gradation in the end. I can't really see the canvas through any of it, so I'm pretty happy with that. It's not 100% dry yet, so I'll just let it do some air drying here. But I do want to show you two paintings that I have a sky in. And I did these a while ago, a few years ago. So I've got this one with kind of an orangey sky because it's in the desert. It's in Mitzparamon, also in Israel. So it goes from dark blue, very similar to the blue I have over here, not quite as purple. And then we're getting more to the orangey kind of yellowy color down here. Yeah, you just observe the skies in real life and kind of picture what color that would be with your paint. One trick that I like to do when I see a color that I want to remember is I put my hands around it and make a little circle. So if you do that, then it kind of eliminates everything around. Let's see if I can do it here. Yeah, just like that. So you're like, ooh, I want to remember that color. Or down here, and you can compare it. You can compare it with your hand, or like it goes next to your hand. It's like a little frame. You can do the same thing with like a cutout rectangle piece of paper, but you always have your hands with you, so I think that works nicely. And then here I've got another soldier, and this one is a slightly, well, this one's around the ocean as well, so this is a little closer to what I just painted. Again, quite purple, and that's just it's a smaller sky. You can see a pretty distinct difference between this color down here and this up here, and that'll happen sometimes with your skies, but you still get a convincing sky, I think, when you do it with this kind of technique. Now, I hope you learned a little bit and you enjoyed watching it, and I'll see you again next month. Take care.